managed package, unmanaged package, even a change set. Anybody?
We know we got some people that mess with change sets. If anybody's an admin or
Did
developer.
anybody wandering here off the street and not sure what Salesforce is? Okay, awesome. So yeah, if you weren't aware, the Appexchange just hit their 10-year anniversary. Way back in the dark days of 2006, they launched this thing, and they couldn't get anybody to come into it, right? So nobody was making applications, and everybody was sitting there going, well, why would I build a business-to-business SaaS application that runs on somebody else's SaaS application? So Salesforce kind of looked around the ecosystem, and they had this little partner that was focused on nonprofit work, and they said, look, guys, you're actually fairly technical. You came from another consultancy. We know you can technically handle this. We need somebody to help us build applications for the Appexchange. We've got to push our partners somewhere. So about 2007, we worked with a company called Scudat to put an app up on the exchange. That company's now Squid, and that's how Code Science got our start. So we've been doing this now for 9 years, I guess. It's getting more exciting every day. But the Appexchange has grown along with us. So now there's 3,000 apps, installs every day. It's a fun place to be. All right. So who built them? And the answer is we work with everybody from a couple of people trying to bootstrap an app and get it up and running to Fortune 500 companies that want a way to extend their platform. So the big thing is an idea, and I'm going to keep it high level for just a minute before we get into kind of the technical steps of building an application, and I will tell you guys what we tell people that come to us, and that is the most important thing when you're building an app for the Appexchange is sales and marketing. So as you're funding this and as you're looking at who I'm building it for, who I'm going to build it with, if you've got $1 to spend 20 cents on technology, spend 80 cents on sales and marketing. That's the best advice we can give you. We've been through the pain of people that didn't do that, and those conversations aren't fun, even if we're making money building for them. So enough of the soapbox. All right, so we have various people that we kind of work with and different personas that we build for. So we have a framework that we think through where we talk about, okay, who is actually going to use the application? Quick note, make sure you include admins in that space. That's the most common thing we see is they will leave the Salesforce admin out of the user personas that they're building for. Salesforce admins are a pretty unique buyer in this ecosystem because they're the ones that are actually testing this stuff out. If your app doesn't appeal to them, good luck getting it into the rest of the organization. At the same time, we deal with salespeople. There's plenty of users out there. You always start with who. The next thing you try to do is think about, why am I building this? What is the value I'm bringing to those users? And focus into really understanding what your problem is. Why are you building this app? And we tend to break apps down into 3 categories. They don't match what's up here. We break them down into what we call a content app. So you've got some content that you're providing to somebody, and they're willing to pay for that. The other kind of app is a business process app. So maybe you've got this process that nobody else knows how to do. Trade promotions and consumer packaged goods, for example. That's another kind of app that has a business process. And the third kind is what you would call a feature set. Okay, so think about a Glance or GoToMeeting, right? They're a feature that you're adding into Salesforce. So those are kind of the 3 that we see. That important question there is why. And then you get into more fun stuff. Barton gets involved with kind of the how. How are we going to build this? What's the architectural design? Then we have people, developers that are sitting down and figuring out the what are we going to write right now. But those 4 kind of questions are how we think through that.
So one of the fun technical challenges there, sorry to interrupt, but is making sure that you have something that will install in any type of org. So people have professional edition all the way up to unlimited. I don't know what they are at right now. And then they've got different features. Some people would use Chatter, some people don't. Some people have Service Cloud, some people have Sales Cloud. So it's got to be a little bit dynamic, and people always use Salesforce differently. I'm sure everybody in here works for different types of companies, and you may have primarily sales focused, or you may be using Salesforce to manage your doctor's office or human resources. So just another side note there.
Quick show of hands, who in here works for Salesforce? Great, okay. So next piece of this. You do not have to have a managed release package listed on the Appexchange to get a product into the hands of your customers. This lists about 3 ways that you can go. There are also private packages that you can distribute and test. You can build things and just install it directly outside of a package. There's free versions. There's a lot of ways to get this distributed. Think about all of those before you go negotiate an agreement with Salesforce as an OEM or ISV partner. There's a there's an option called checkout that really fits for a lot of small businesses. And that one's a really good one to consider because it takes a lot of the billing obligation off of you and gets you a better percent of net profit share than a full-fledged ISV agreement. So sooner or later, you'll be in the ISV agreement because everybody will be successful, but we'll throw that out there too. There are 2 primary kinds of license types that Appexchange apps come with, and it's important to know this piece. So there's an ISV force license type, and that I think of it as a Venn diagram. So on one side, you've got Salesforce with all of their functionality. An ISV license lets you put something inside of that, right? You have to have a Salesforce license, then you get an ISV license. The other type is what we've got at the bottom here, and that's an OEM license. So you don't need Salesforce for your product, probably a business process or a specific vertical industry you're going after. That can stand alone. You don't have to have a Salesforce license in addition. But those are the 2 primary types of actual license types that you'd be selling. The checkout thing that I mentioned is for ISV licenses only. Okay, so we talked about, do you know what your users want, why they want it? And like I said, spending your money on technical resources, you will do it sooner or later. You want a good technical team that understands your product and how to build it. However, get into market first. Invest in your sales and marketing, and you're going to be better off in the long haul. The other benefit to that is Salesforce partners better with those organizations, because who in here has ever talked to a Salesforce sales rep? The last thing is, do everybody a favor. Don't be a jerk. Don't go try to build CRM functionality in your app. There's a reason Salesforce is #1 in the market. Believe it or not, they don't play well with people that do that. So that's kind of a big no-no. The other way to think about that is think about what your objects are going to be named. And if your objects need things like the name case or opportunity, indications are pretty good you're building something that they're going to object to. And then the last thing is it always takes longer than you expect. So our big timeline motivator for people is Dreamforce. Everybody wants that app up on stage at Dreamforce. That means we're about to get really busy, and July is really going to be hectic for us. All of these guys in the orange shirts over here, we're not going to see them for the entire month of July because they're going to be busy writing this stuff. Okay.
Going through security review, which takes up to 8 weeks, depending on how close you're to Dreamforce. They have a deadline. Last year it was the 4th of July to get your app into security review so they can be ready by Dreamforce at the end of September. So they always have the inundation, so it's another thing to consider. It takes a while.
So that's the end of the soft and fluffy stuff, and we'll get down to how do you actually do this?
Alrighty. So the first thing to do would be go to p.force.com. That's going to have all the materials you really need to get started. You'll be able to register, and you'll get a phone call probably from a salesperson trying to see what you're building and see if there's any market there for Salesforce. You can get as many free developer orgs as you want, which is pretty cool. You can get any type of org, so you can get an unlimited edition or enterprise edition or professional edition. You can get sandboxes, all that kind of fun stuff. You want to build something that people would love to use that they're not getting right now out of Salesforce. If you're building something for an internal company and you have a bunch of orgs to install it in, think about the users in those other businesses that want to do the same thing that you're doing. You can actually, within the developer org, there's another feature at the bottom underneath the create, and I'll show you a live demo of that in a second. But it's just like creating a change set, but you're creating a package. And then you add things just like you're adding to a change set and upload it, and you'll get a link that anybody can install. If you're getting it on the Appexchange, one of the important parts is getting it through security review. That means if you have any integrations with any other platform, that domain has to be secure. Salesforce is very careful that nobody can hijack Salesforce and bring it down. That's kind of a big deal. So they want to make sure that you're not introducing any bad domains into their ecosystem. So they do things like burp scan or zap scan, which are available for free on p.force.com, or license for that is. And then once you're ready to go, you can publish it back on p.force.com, and you'll be able to see everybody that's installed it, how many licenses they have, the kind of revenue that you're pulling in, that kind of stuff. So with that, I think the next slide is a demo.
So do you have, so this the free scans, so you would run that when you create it first, just so you know where you kind of stand?
Yeah, so there's two different kinds. There's also a checkmark scan, which will scan the Salesforce code. Yeah, so that'll find things that are actually written in Salesforce. And then the burp scan or zap, and I think they've got a third one now.
So the latest one is
Chimera.
And the important thing to know about Chimera, it will actually do a network port scan on your application if you're providing an external integration. So as you're setting it up, you also have to have access to that, we'll call it a workload, since maybe you're using Heroku. But you have to have access to that to be able to install the token file that they can check for and make sure you've got control over that external service. So it's not a trivial piece at that point.
So it would be for if the domain is internal, it's something that your company has created. Like if you're Adobe, it'd be adobe.com. If you're doing integration with like Google Maps or something, then you would use Burp or Zap. But that's been tested before, so you should be in pretty good shape if you're integrating with Google.
What about an integration with like a government site, government database?
So, yeah, same thing. You're going to integrate with the government database. You kind of have two options. One is to try to integrate directly and cross your fingers and hope they're going to pass that Chimera scan. That's probably going to be difficult if they're doing a port scan or that kind of thing. The other option is to create a middle tier that kind of grabs what you want out of that database and then is properly secured and it's back to Salesforce.
All right, so everybody, or a lot of people are familiar with the Salesforce menu, the admin menu. So just like you have the ability to create objects, in developer orgs, you have the ability to create packages. So I'll go in here. First thing to do is choose a namespace, which I've already chosen, called SE Dreamin'. This will make sure that your object that's named contact doesn't interfere with Salesforce's object named contact, so that the code doesn't get intermingled. And in those,
Throw one thing on there.
yes.
My favorite story that I've heard lately on namespacing. I always looked at it and thought, oh, whatever, you're picking a fun name for your package. About a week ago, I got a call from a guy named Daryl. And Daryl was on the phone with Farhan from Salesforce. 8 years ago, Daryl chose the namespace ONE for his package. And then Salesforce released Lightning. So his package conflicted with Lightning, and they couldn't upgrade any more where it had been installed. We talked through it on the phone. We've got some approaches for how we're going to overcome that. But when you're naming your package, try to make it something so unique to you that Salesforce would never stumble across it like a word file.
Like your company name. And then you can choose if you want your package to be managed or unmanaged. You can create as many unmanaged packages as you want. Only one can be managed that would eventually go onto the Appexchange. The main difference between managed and unmanaged is managed is upgradable, and unmanaged, people can see your code and they can edit your code and do whatever they want to with it. All the Salesforce labs that they give you to start with. One of the popular ones is clone-related list. If you've ever used that, that's an unmanaged package that you can edit and do whatever you want to with it. So I'm going to choose to make my SE Dreamin' package managed. And save. Fairly straightforward process. Go into that, and this is where, kind of like creating a change set, you're going to add in everything on your package that you've created custom. Only custom things show up in this list, so you can't add the account and contact object. You can only add custom objects. So I'm just going to add some custom fields in here that get added in automatically. If anybody's ever signed up with a developer org, you get all these free fields that Salesforce shows you how custom fields work. So just for demo purposes, I'm going to create an object with those things and click add to package, and then just upload. And that will process. You can create a name for it. People name all kind of different random things. We'll call ours SE Dreamin' Day 2 package. This is version 1.0. You can start with anything there. It'll automatically increment as you add new versions of your package. Managed beta means that you can still edit the contents of the package once it's a managed release. Any field or object or class that you've added can't be taken out easily. Now Salesforce has allowed that. If you open a case with them, they'll let you take it out. Once you take it out, you can't add that back. So it's something to be very careful about what you're naming your package, your objects in your package. So I'm going to leave this managed beta. You can have a URL for your release notes or your post-install instructions. You can have a message that comes up after somebody installs, like your org has been contaminated.
One thing here, we were talking about that admin use case, or user. This is where you can be really friendly to your admin user. If they can go in, see some simple post-install instructions, they can get this thing in and running easier, they're going to be more likely to use the application. So that's one of the kind of the key hooks right there for that admin user.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most important things to have is something like that makes it easy for admins so they don't just try it and say, this is hard to do, I'm going to find something else. There's some things that your admin will have to do post-install, like edit standard page layouts to add fields to it that you can't package for. People use tons of different page layouts for different record types and that sort of thing. You can password protect it if you want to keep it internal and keep it secure so that other companies can't access it if it's unmanaged or something like that. You want to let people know which features are required for this package. If the package has a chatter feature and it calls chatter code, that's going to be automatically checked saying they've got to use chatter to install this. It's got all the Salesforce features there. But you want to try, if you can, to make it as agnostic as possible to features. There's different ways you can write code so that it calls chatter via the API rather than calling an Apex method that chatter uses so that it doesn't recognize that it's chatter. And you can do things in post-install scripts that will check for chatter and enable it if you need to, or create groups for you, and then turn that feature off if they're not using chatter. So then I've got everything selected there. Object requirements are the same thing. If they need to have field history tracking turned on for contract in order for your package to work. It's probably not going to be very popular, but you can put that in there. So then I'll upload that. Sure.
So just to make sure I understand what you said. You have a managed package, so we have a managed package, and there are many Apex triggers, and you're in security, you only submit security after you do tracking.
Mm-hmm.
So it always flagged it out that you have many triggers on this couple options. So what we ended up doing, so we had one object, we had three, the other one we had four. So So we end up combining all these Apex triggers
Mhm.
into one on each one of these objects. Even when we package right now, it's still showing, even and we deactivated the triggers, it's still telling us that instead of saying we have now one, it's still showing the 3 or 4, all of them. So are you saying that we can go back to Salesforce and say we don't want those anymore, and they can do something about it?
Right.
It does not be flagged every time?
Right. They can enable your org so that you can delete those triggers out, and then you can go back in and delete them. You just can't add anything with that name back after that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, my package is uploaded. Now I have one of those links that a lot of you admins have seen that you can now use to install this in any org in the ecosystem. So it's that easy. You can also do things like add scripts before the install to do different things in the org that you want to set up, like custom settings or any kind of data that you want to try to get in there. And then an uninstall script if somebody installs to go in and back out changes that have been done post install. And then once that's done, you'll just go back over to p.force.com. There'll be a link there called Publishing, and it's got a lot of different options. It's very user-friendly, so that org needs to be connected. So you can have a bunch of developer orgs that you need to connect to p.force.com. It's as easy as clicking connect and entering username and password. I've already added this one at the bottom. It's called SE Dreamin'. You'll see your packages that are in all those orgs, both managed and unmanaged. So you see it has what licenses are in that. Where's mine? So go ahead.
So once you create the package and you upload it, it's not available to everybody yet, right? You have to go through the security review and create a list, or is it?
It's considered a private listing at that point, so you can share it with people. They just can't find it.
So
They can't
So
search the Appexchange.
theoretically, you could actually start marketing it at that point, even though.
So what you probably want to do is you've just gone through the exercise of saying, hey, here's what I think this market wants. So you want to then take that to all the users in that market that you can get a hold of. Best practice number is like 30. And say, hey, does this solve your problem? How much are you willing to pay for this? You can do that with private listing. You can even do that with a drawing if you want some cases. Once you've got that feedback and it matches up with what you expected, then you can start looking at, hey, do I want to make my package managed, or do I want to make my package listed on the Appexchange? That's the point at which you can kind of start marketing it, so that now you know you've got a solid use case people are willing to pay for.
That's kind of the reason that I created this as a beta package, so that you can try this out with your customers before you actually list it on the Appexchange, and you can find out what breaks and what doesn't, if it's actually something they want or need, that sort of thing. If they've got other triggers that conflict with your triggers, you'll find that out. So then to get through security review, there's a link and a wizard that will walk you through adding all the things that you need that Salesforce needs in order to review your app. It'll have things like a question on your security policy if you have anything internally. It'll have a place for you to upload any documentation on how to use your app so that they can actually walk through it and test it out as a user, and make sure it's not going to break as soon as somebody installs it. You'll have a place to upload your burp or zap scan that we mentioned earlier, so they can see that whatever you're running against is secure. They'll also run their own scan against those third-party domains to make sure that it's that your burp scan shows everything that is legitimate. You can choose if it's an app or a Lightning component. Salesforce now has the Salesforce for Lightning component exchange. They just list it separately. There's really no other difference other than that. I'm not going to actually submit mine to security review. Would probably not pass. It shows that it's unmanaged. That was a previous one that I did. And then once it's through, or you can actually go ahead and create a listing for it on the Appexchange.
So a lot of times, if you're in a large organization, your marketing team is saying, great way to keep them busy. You can say, hey, go build my listing, make all the graphics beautiful, and you kind of get to work building the app and making sure it's baked. Once it gets to security review, then you can turn the listing they've created public, and everybody's ready to go. Yeah.
So once you, maybe you're getting to this, I don't know. So once you're done with this app and you've uploaded it and maybe you haven't, so you're maybe just kind of giving it to a few people to try it to ring out any bugs or whatever. But then how do you deal with the like per user license fee? How does that all happen?
Go ahead.
So there's an application Salesforce is going to give you that is the license management application. And it will actually be tied to this listing. And when anybody ever seen the big green get it now button?
Yep.
Okay. When you do things like hit a get it now button, it's going to log a lead into your business org that has the LMA installed. You can see the acronym start creeping up.
So that's why sometimes when you hit get it now, you'll get a phone call immediately from that company that you installed their app, or an email saying, thank you for installing our app, we'll be reaching out to you.
And it's going to track all of the licenses associated with those links as well.
And Salesforce will actually give you 2 free Salesforce licenses to use for that license management app in your Salesforce org. So then this is where you add in marketing materials, videos on how to use your app, brief description, bullet points, emails, terms and conditions, all that kind of fun stuff for supporting your app. You can indicate how long the trial length is. This is the things that Jeff was talking about to get your marketing team working on what your logo and banner image is going to look like.
You can do some fun tricks too, like our favorite, hotels.com was an app we did a few years ago. And they had a nice big green kind of indicator that points down to the Get It Now button. So there's like a subliminal message that says, hey, click Get It Now. So have your team be creative with those images, because you can do some neat stuff even within the constraints of the app.
You can do things like give your customers a free test org if you're doing a whole application off of Salesforce, like a human resources or a real estate application that's just using the platform, and people wouldn't install it in their org, but they're actually getting a Salesforce org when they sign up for your app. So you can give them a demo org that they can eventually turn into a full live org if they want to, start paying for it. This is where you have things like notify me when people install, create a lead in my Salesforce license management app like we were talking about. You can also set your pricing here. You can make it free or paid. One thing to note about paid apps is Salesforce does charge for security review. If you're planning to make money off of that, it's $2,700 I think now for the security review process, just to help augment the cost of them having a team available to run all these scans.
One note on that, 'cause this is kind of an important point. In the agreements that you sign to get an app live, you basically commit that if you're selling an app, that you're going to share that revenue with Salesforce at some percentage. If you put in a free app and you're collecting revenue for your service, Salesforce is going to say, well, hey, you put in a free app, but you're making money, so we need a percentage of that revenue. If you look at paid apps, not necessarily as a moneymaker, but as a way to kind of have a firewall on that revenue, so that you have a very defined bucket and sandbox that Salesforce can work with you on, that's going to save you a lot of time and probably legal fees.
So there's unlimited options, or tons of options here for how you charge your customers by the org or by the user, by the month or year, or a one-time fee. You can choose to offer discounts for nonprofits and put whatever other kind of pricing details that you want your customers and Salesforce to know. Go ahead.
Is the commission fee that Salesforce is looking for, is that typically a negotiable element, or is it pretty much fixed?
So they're moving more and more to fixed as this gets larger. That fee itself is definitely not negotiable. So they look at it as really a way to qualify customers. And if if you're not gonna pay $2,700 to create a paid app, they look at it as maybe it's not the best platform for that particular company.
As an example, we have a free app today, and we were trying to get more Salesforce people to pay attention to it, so we wanted to switch to a paid app, because in order for the sales reps to get paid, you have to be a paid app, is our understanding.
Right.
And when we're bringing customers onto the platform without Salesforce's help, which we're currently doing today, we don't really want to pay them a commission, but if they bring us people, we're happy to pay them a commission. Has anybody run into that dilemma?
We have other customers that have, and the main issue is the revenue problem I laid out a minute ago. There is, if you go back to Dreamforce 2015, the task group was one of their big ISV partners, put out a really nice deck around selling to Salesforce and how you kind of work with their team. But the other option to maybe take a look at rather than a full-blown agreement is checkout. They do the billing on checkout, so it kind of takes that control away from you, but the net revenue share is less than on the standard agreement.
So clarify the difference between checkout and,
Yeah, so you kind of have different stages. The bottom would be free, okay, nobody pays. Checkout is supposed to be an automated billing system where, you know, cheap app, you're gonna put it through checkout, they can click through with a credit card, get licensed. Salesforce handles all the billing, sends you a check for the rest. The next step up is what you call a custom agreement or an ISV Force agreement. That agreement's either gonna give you the right to sell OEM licenses or to sell ISV licenses, and you will have the right to handle the billing and collect the money from customers and be the primary relationship with those customers. Their sales team gets more interested the more you move up the stack. So if, you know, once you have enough revenue coming in, ISV Force or OEM agreements are probably where you want to be. That also ties you into access to their technical resources and marketing dollars. But free and checkout are good places as you're testing your market and building things.
So here you can also indicate which types of orgs your app supports. If you want to stick to the higher editions, or if you don't have an API, you can support group edition. All that fun stuff. So, and then I believe that's all for my demo. Okay, so we talked through a lot of the reasons why it's not that easy. Salesforce kind of has a hand in it for obvious reasons. We mentioned not duplicating CRM functionality, build something unique that people will love, that they can't get from Salesforce. Security review can be difficult if you touch a lot of different endpoints. You might have to change code on your domain so that it's more secure. You may have people that aren't really familiar with the platform. Apex is an interesting language with a lot of rules that you don't apply on other platforms. The checkmark scan is going to test things like valid test coverage for your classes, that you don't have triggers, 5 triggers running on opportunity, that sort of thing. Some of it checks for all the best practices on the platform. If you have a paid app, you have to pay up front. Like we mentioned, the $2,700 fee. You have a free app, obviously it doesn't apply. And then another thing that is very important that we see all the time is your app has to continue to produce releases and innovate. As the platform grows, if you're still using an old UI, your customers are going to want the latest and greatest. Somebody else is going to create an app that's got that, so you want to continue innovating on your app so that you will have something that your customers will continue to want year in and year out. And that is it. If anybody has any more questions, please go for it. Great.
Has the Lightning experience changed the requirements from the security perspective at all? Or if not, do you know if they plan on that? Are they going to start enforcing that
No, they have a thing called Lightning certification, which gives a banner or sash up on your listing showing that it works with Lightning seamlessly, that it's responsive, that it has the right menu navigation, that sort of thing. But as far as security review goes, they haven't enforced anything like that yet. I imagine once they get Salesforce platform more and more Lightning enabled, then they'll start doing that kind of thing. Back, go ahead.
I was gonna say, one thing to note on that, because Lightning uses a lot more JavaScript libraries than traditional Visualforce development, sometimes you run into weird things. So if you actually run a zap or verb scan on the page that you've created, or on the code that you've created, sometimes it will identify additional security issues that you might not catch if it was just a normal Visualforce page.
That's why I was kind of curious, because I know Lightning is a lot of different, the JavaScript pages, and said if I have any custom stuff, I know the cross-site forgery, request forgery, and all that stuff's gotten last time, or.
Yeah.
If I'm having to scan on it, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Now, like, and what you're talking about, I mean, well, we can get into the details around that and talk about it in more depth.
Yeah, so not just Lightning. A lot of people that build apps on the Appexchange have JavaScript front ends for their apps that their users enjoy more than what the old Salesforce experience was, Aloha. So that's very common for Salesforce to scan your JavaScript libraries and make sure that there's not anything that's going to let users creep in there and do things they shouldn't do. Back in the back.
Actually, I was gonna ask something very similar.
Okay. Well, there's anybody else? Obviously, you can email us. We'll answer anything. Or if your team has anything after you head out of here, we'll be happy to answer.
So we're actually located, as Mark said, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're about 60 strong at this point. And one thing we like to tell people is if you want help with building something cool, give us a call. We're happy to do it. If you want to build something cool, see this man right here in the white t-shirt. And if you want to complain about something we've built, I'll give you my wife's phone number.